Welcome back to another round, Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, and anyone in between. Every view, every share, every like, every comment, it's all appreciated. Now, on this one, I'm actually running a bit late because there are some fights on today, and I'm hoping that this actually goes out by the time those come around. So what I'm going to do those ones first, then I'm going to get to kind of the undercard of Smith Eubank 2, and then finally we're going to end with Smith Eubank 2 as sort of the main segment. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. Now look, there's actually quite a lot of fights on. So for this first part with regards to Friday, I'm only going to be focusing on two. The first of which is going to be Dina Thorslund versus Yulihan Luna, which you should be able to see on the Fight TV network. It's taking place in Denmark, I believe. And Yulihan Luna is obviously the away fighter, Mexican. It's a unification of the WBO and the WBC titles at bantamweight. So with that being said, real quick one. So contrasting styles, Yulihan Luna is a bit more of an aggressive fighter, not so much pressure fighter, but she sort of is more of a fighter that will try and sort of push the pace, try and sort of box and create openings and attack. In her patterns are not always very predictable, but she will be the one sort of trying to push the pace and force those initial first and second phases of attack to try and win this fight. On the other hand, you have Dina Thorslund, who is a bit more of a pure boxer slash boxer puncher, but she was more likely to be on the back foot, trying to set traps, trying to walk Yulihan Luna onto punches. And even though Luna will be aggressive, I think that the back foot fighting may work in Thorslund's favor, because I think she's got a little bit more pop than what Luna has, although Luna will most definitely be able to sort of handle and weather those shots, and she does actually hit a lot harder than her record suggests. As it is in Denmark, and obviously it is a it's a Disrupt Promotions card, Yulihan Luna will not really get consideration in any of the quote-unquote close rounds. She's going to have to really make those rounds dominant in order to win. I just think that Dina Thorslund will have enough clean work, enough effective work, get enough of the crowd on her side while boxing in between the rounds, that she will eke out a points victory. So my prediction will be Dina Thorslund to win on points, either majority or possibly even split decision, as I think she will be pushed very hard in this fight. But yeah, if Luna was to win, I wouldn't be surprised. That being said, moving over to Channel 5 / DAZN for the Wasserman card. Now, I don't think it's DAZN in the UK, because I never get to see the undercards there. But you've got Lyndon versus Brian Suarez. Lyndon, I believe, is 22-1 with 15 KOs, and I believe Brian Suarez is 18-1 with 17 KOs. So even though it may not be the highest level of opposition that Brian Suarez has been in the ring with, I think it's fair to say that he's got enough of a decent pop on him. Whereas Lyndon we know, is very much more of the the slick operator, keeping the range long, keeping it loose, working from the outside, being very economical, trying to pick his shots, trying to find his openings and attack. He has been a bit more front foot heavy in his last couple of fights, and he's been a lot more willing to sort of, I'm not going to say necessarily trade, but to try and find those openings and to try and find those power shots. Now that might be his best option to keep Brian Suarez holstered, just because obviously you don't want to give a power puncher confidence that they can get enough time to get their shots off. So you may have to end up being a bit more busy rather than trying to wait for that opening to come through for him to be able to exploit. And I think, being that this is obviously for a version of a world championship, not a major one, but I guess it's one that could end up being that way in the future, I think Lyndon is going to take it. I think he's going to seize the opportunity. and I think he's going to have a very good composed performance. I'm predicting it does go points. I'm predicting it's going to be a unanimous decision. However, if there was a stoppage between sort of rounds 9 and 11, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think that Lyndon Arthur is going to win this one on points. Although I say that and then watch it get over of that 4th round KO or something. But yeah, that's the prediction. That's what I'm sticking with. So now let's move over to the undercard of Smith Eubank 2. Okay, so before we get into the main ones on the undercard, let's just look at Lauren Price versus Lolita Mazea. Ultimately, I think Lauren Price is going to win that one on points. I don't think she's got enough power to stop Lolita Mazea. And she's, you know, Lolita, she's come off the back of 2 sort of KO victories. She's back at a weight that's more comfortable to her. Yeah, I think that I do see that one going. I think it's a 8-rounder, so I do see it going the full 8 rounds, quite frankly. Next, you've got Mark Heffron versus Jack Cullen. This one should actually be fairly interesting. A lot of people have said if Heffron puts it on Cullen the first 3 rounds, he wins. But if it goes past those 3 rounds, then Cullen can sort of start to pressure him and grind him down and wear him down. Now, I somewhat agree. However, I actually have more of a feeling that this fight goes to a split decision points win for Mark Heffron. I just feel like he's going to start strong. He's going to maybe get pushed about a little bit towards the sort of the second half of the first half of the fight, and then they'll kind of be trading back and forth between each other in the sort of in the second half. And I do believe it's a 10-rounder. So with that, I think that Heffron will win just a few extra rounds than Cullen does, and ultimately that will be his excuse. That will be his method to victory. Again, a lot of people say they don't see it going past 6 rounds, but I think it may just go to points because they know each other enough where they can sort of nullify each other enough. But I'm prepared to be totally wrong on that one. Next, we've got Michaela Mayer against Sylvia Bortot. Now, I've not seen Sylvia before, but this is supposed she's a former European champion at 140, as far as I've been told. She has been stopped in the past. I know Michaela is saying that she's feeling invigorated in her normal body. I don't particularly believe she's got power, but maybe she could prove me wrong. But that being said, again, just going off vibes, I've got a feeling that Michaela Mayer is going to get a stoppage in this fight to then set up that Natasha Jonas fight in the next one. So I'm predicting sort of a stoppage around about the 8th round. Could be totally wrong, but it's either a stoppage or it's a clear UD win. But I think it's an 8th round stoppage, there or thereabouts. Now, moving on to sort of like the main fights of this card. So you got Fraser Clark versus David Allen, as he now wants to be known. Now, this one's interesting because Allen has always had the technical ability to be a pretty handy, pretty decent boxer. He just never had the application, never had the drive, never had the, I guess, the real will to just want to succeed. He just kind of felt everything was going to be handed to him. But he's been in there with some of the better sort of like B-level fighters in the world. He's in there with David Price, who at one point was, on his way to being one of the most highly anticipated prospects, like in the heavyweight division. He's been in there with Luis Ortiz, like Tony Yoka. Like, even though he lost all of those fights, that's experience that you can't really get just fighting, scrubs on the circuit, on the come up, so to speak. So I feel like that is going to show that he's got a level of durability and a level of survival, and he'll know how to sort of navigate those difficult rounds. Besides, him and Fraser Clark know each other very well. They sparred loads and loads of rounds together. Now, Fraser is still sort of slightly transitioning from amateur to pro, but it looks like he's developing a bit more of that pro nous to him now. But he still says that he's looking to box. He says, look, if he has to bring out the sort of that savage side of him, he will do, but that's not the first nature. So with that being the case, I feel as if David Allen is going to have enough of a enough almost old man tactics to be able to get himself through this fight. I think he's even going to have some moments of success also. He's always had a tough head, a tough, durable guy, so I can't really see him getting poleaxed or flattened, because he's been hit by much better fighters than Frazier Clark and stayed on his feet. And I feel like he's got a bit of a renowned hunger, maybe not for the sport itself, but for a reason to get back into it than he had before, which may make his will and resolve a bit higher. So with that being said, I do think that this one is going to be a clean, unanimous points win for Frazier Clark. I can't see him getting the stoppage. It would be surprising to me if he did, but I definitely think he's going to win, and win fairly comfortably on the cards, like as a 10 round or so, like a 7-3, 8-2 type fight, in my opinion. Now you've got Adam Azim versus Artem Fanian. I guess I forgot what's his name, Florian Marku and Dylan Moran. I think Florian, he's still kind of got the money behind him. He's got Albania behind him, so I don't really see that they're going to allow him to lose a decision that he doesn't, unless he gets knocked out. If it goes points, I think he's always going to get a points decision, just like the last time. So I am predicting a majority or a split decision win for him. That's about as much as I've got on there. No technicals regarding that. Where was we? Adam Azim versus Artem Fanian. I haven't seen enough of Fanian to be able to give an assessment of where his actual level is. All I know is he's 23-1, but I've seen some of the open workout stuff. I've seen one of his fights where he just looked fairly composed, fairly, sort of a fairly ABC type fighter, but pretty decent fundamentals. I don't think he's quick enough to be able to, collapse the pocket and stop Adam Azim from being able to land those heavy shots. But I think his fundamentals and defense will get him through the first half of the fight, but I do think he will eventually get broken down. And I am predicting Adam Azim to come through around about round 7 or round 8 and win the fight that way. I think about 7th or 8th round KO, where the ref does eventually wave it off. So that is my prediction for the undercard. Now we can go to the main event. So Smith versus Eubank 2, repeat or revenge. Bit of a cliche title, but it's fairly apt and propos, I suppose. Now, no one expected Chris Eubank Jr. to get knocked out in 4 rounds in the first fight. There's a lot of people that expect him to lose. Now, I initially kind of thought that he might, but I did predict for him to win a points decision initially when I did my first one, just thinking that he would have some success at the start, then Liam Smith will kind of pressure towards the middle, but Chris will do just about enough to get through and get the rounds at the end and control it just by sort of being longer and keeping Smith on the end of the jab. Well, the first part of that did kind of happen to start off with, but then what happened afterwards. Now Chris has got a new trainer for this one. You had Roy Jones Jr. said that he couldn't train him for this one, as he did have other commitments to some other fighters that had fight dates scheduled as well, and he couldn't leave them to go and be with Chris. So it's an amicable thing. They could obviously get back together later on, we never know, but ultimately he's with Brian Bo McIntyre now. Everyone knows Terence Crawford's trainer. Crawford, the consensus #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. So in that should instill a level of mentality to Chris Eubank Jr. to say, well, if I thought I was tough before, well, I've got someone here who they wouldn't take me on if I wasn't, and they train like the greatest fighter in the sport currently. So it has to, that has to mean something. So from a mental standpoint, I feel like that's a really good attribute for him. Now, also, I guess a good benefit is because he doesn't have Roy Jones in the corner, he's not going to try and do Roy Jones 2.0 and try to almost make Roy proud of him by implementing things that Roy used to do that Roy wasn't actually teaching him to do. He was telling him what he should be doing, but he was just trying to emulate what Roy used to do, is to, you know, for some form of approval. With Bomac, that's not the case, because Bomac was never a great professional. He was okay, you know, but he wasn't a great pro or a great amateur. But you know that as a coach, he has to be doing something right because of who he's training around. That tells me that I feel like Chris Eubank Jr. is going to try to stay mid-range a lot more in this fight, as opposed to actually like long distance and trying to control behind the jab. I do think he's going to use the jab as a method to slow down the fight when he wants to take breaks, but I ultimately think he's going to try and push Liam Smith back, keep him on the back foot so that he can't come forward and have forward momentum. And in that point, he's going to try for those uppercuts. He's going to try for those shots around the side. He might even try for a couple of sneaky low blows based on what we've seen in this in the week just gone. On the other hand, you've got Liam Smith, who basically knows the game plan, knows all of Chris's best attributes, feels like he knows he can take Chris's best shots, and knows how to adjust his body movements and his positions to get into range in order to make sure that he can, you know, exchange with Chris from the safety of his high guard as and when he needs to. Now, the biggest issue here is that he had to postpone the fight for a back injury back in June, and we never know how those properly heal. And if Chris has got him twisting and moving around the ring, you know, maybe is backing him up onto the ropes and there's stretching him out over the top rope and all sorts of things like that, then you've got a problem where that back could go at any moment. And Liam isn't obviously he's not the youngest person, and I guess the most supple, the most sort of the most flexible, so that could all play into Chris's hands. But Liam has done quite a good job of getting into Chris's psyche, like sort of winning those mental battles, shutting down every sort of excuse Chris wants to say. Every time Chris has something to say, Liam is just on it, quick snap reactions and responses. And I think some of that might be getting to Chris and is going to make Chris act a little bit out of character. So Chris may end up going a bit aggressive in this fight, which may not play to his advantages. But he has made the weight better this time. He said it himself, he's got a nutritionist in. He looked a lot better I didn't think he looked that bad on the scales in the first one, but he looked markedly better this time round. So with all of that, I mean, he is the naturally bigger of the two, I suppose, in that sense. So there is a lot of ways it can go. Now, generally speaking, rematches are won by the person that seems to be able to make the most adjustments. And I don't think it's possible that what happened the first time we can see happen again in the exact same manner. So even if Liam Smith was to win, it would be a lot later on, a lot of more of a ground down affair, possibly even like, you know, a late stoppage or points victory. They're going to make a point of not allowing this fight to be called off prematurely, if that's what they consider it to be. So that's going to be something, I think, playing on the referee's mind, obviously playing on Bomac's mind as well. However, just like in the first fight, I do feel that even though Liam Smith is the better fighter and is, you know, the more worldly and has the better technique and everything like that, just a better boxer overall, I just think Chris has something. I think he's just got that little bit extra explosiveness that Liam doesn't have, and I think he's actually going to attempt to lay out on this particular occasion. And again, with that whole back situation with Liam, I don't know how that's playing out. When they did the weigh-in, Liam looked a little bit more jittery, a little more, he was sort of, you know, the Adam's apple, he was swallowing the Adam's apple was going quite a bit in their face off. He looked a bit more agitated and uncomfortable than he did in the first one, and all of that kind of tells me that maybe there's something going on that we're not aware of in the background. So look, it's all speculation. I can only kind of go on my gut feeling, and my gut feeling is that Chris Eubank is going to win this fight. I can't see it being a KO, but anything's possible. But I do feel like he's going to end up winning on points. A very, very close points decision, possibly even a split, or a very, very late stoppage. We're talking round 11 or round 12. To me, that's all I can really see in my head. I could be horribly wrong, but that's kind of what I'm going with. So I'm gonna predict Chris Eubank Jr. split decision or very late stoppage, but I've got him winning this fight. Leave your predictions down below. Let me know what you think. Let's see who's right, let's see who's wrong. But for right now, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And that's Basis Picks. Locked.